Well, it's a fiery day in Canberra. Parliament resumed, of course, the 2025 election year. To break it all down, I'm joined now by our political editor, Andrew Clennell. Hey, I'll get to Canberra in a moment, but you're a bit of an expert on New South Wales politics. It was your patch before you came to us at Sky. I want to get your take on the whole Joe Haylen saga. Particularly, we'll start this morning with these comments from Premier Minns on Radio 2GB.
If what I'm informing you about right now, if that is true, what do you do then?
Well, look, I'm at a disadvantage. I don't know about the circumstances in which you're presenting them to me. Fair enough, you're entitled to ask, but I don't know. It's obviously, that would be very troubling.
Have you checked with Joe whether there's another winery trip?
I mean, I checked whether there was other incidents or examples, as did the media. I take her at her word. Of course, I'd be very concerned if there was another example.
Now, after listening to that, I didn't think she was going to last very long, and of course she didn't. Here she is, Jo Haylen, fronting the media this afternoon.
When we came to government, we inherited a public transport system that was on its knees. I'm incredibly proud that we've managed to make public transport exciting again. And it doesn't matter how much money you make or where you live, you can get public transport, get to work, do your job and look after your family. It's core to our Labor values.
Now, I had to play that grab, Andrew. I thought it was extraordinary. She says you take it to work, you use public transport to look after your kids. Only if you're the minister, you don't, and that's what's cost her job.
It's just extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, it's extraordinary when you give someone a job and a title sometimes that it just completely goes to their head and they become so entitled. And they think, you know, the world needs to do them a favour. I mean, this isn't a matter of wherever she lives, Summerhill, going a couple of suburbs away and a driver waiting outside for her to have lunch with a colleague there. He had to drive for 2 hours, pick her up, take her and her friends, including a colleague, to lunch, wait outside for 3 hours while they presumably got drunk, then driven them back to the holiday home and then drive another 2 hours home during an Australia Day long weekend. No doubt that's how it's leaked out. The drivers told other drivers and it's gone through the parliamentary system, and Linda Somalis has broken the story to her credit on Sunday. But you got the sense, didn't you, and this is what you were talking about earlier, Peter, that if she's done this once, she's done it again. And she, in her statement, she confirmed that she'd gone with her husband to the Hunter Valley with the driver. She said, I worked that day. I wonder how hard she actually worked that day. So my understanding from my time in New South Wales is you had an option to take your own car. So you could either have a driver, you were allowed for personal things, but you could have a driver, or you could take the government car, which is a bit like a company car, and that would be different. But no, she wanted to be chauffeured around so she could have a drink, presumably.
Yeah, what I don't understand is she was the Deputy Chief of Staff in the federal system to none other than the Prime Minister, right? So she worked for Anthony Albanese. I work for politicians. You know those rules inside out. You get those rules wrong, or your boss does. Your boss loses his job and you lose your job, right? So she knows the rules federally, and she knows that there are rules. Bronwyn Bishop will tell you this. There are rules that you can be on the right side of the rule, but on the wrong side of the public. And she might have been on the right side of the rule that she's quoting back, and she's forced the Premier now to dump those rules to change them dramatically. But she knows this doesn't stack up. I mean, she's a long-time political hack. So she was just trying to tough it out. She was clearly not telling the full story, the whole truth to the Premier. And I think after he was all over the shop this morning on radio, you know, she couldn't survive, and clearly she hasn't. But you know, what about Rose Jackson? She was in the car with her. Others were in the car with her. They know this is out of line. Why do they keep their jobs?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, Rose Jackson and Jo Haylen both were backers of Chris Minns when he was up against Jodie McKay for the job. So I'm sure that's factored into it. She is what people call Albanistas. She's very much an Albanese creation, as a lot of people who've gone into the state and federal parliaments are. But what is also disturbing is she's from the Labor left. Aren't they supposed to be for the workers? And yet she's treating a worker as in a government driver this way. I can recall going on a trip to the country with a minister. I won't name him, but I did talk to him about it today, a former coalition minister. And we found ourselves in Dubbo, and it was Valentine's Day, actually. I was another Valentine's Day where I'm having dinner with a politician instead of my wife. But we went there, and he invited the driver out. So that's the respect he was giving the driver, you know, and that was a coalition person, whereas she's got the driver outside, you know, and you'll often see security travelling with people like Peter Dutton, and they'll go and have their own meal, like the restaurant will give them a meal. You know, it's how you treat people in those positions, which says a lot about you as a person. And look, I don't know Jo Halen, but what I do know and what the public knows, unfortunately for her, it's hard to like her after this. It's hard to think she's a terribly good person.
It's a real upstairs, downstairs mentality, I tell you. It's a real upstairs, downstairs mentality. And dear old Malcolm Turnbull, you know, the bloke with plenty of money, loved the public transport. Here we've got Labor's left-wing transport minister who loves the chauffeur, and I think that says everything about where the modern Labor Party is. Let's go to Canberra. A big fight there today about the coalition's plan to allow small business to get an FBT tax break from business lunches. Now, this is where it gets interesting. If you are a big business, if you've got a boardroom in your office and you serve up a meal to your clients there, you get a tax break. If you're a small-time operator and you haven't got a boardroom that serves lunches, you want to take someone out to the local pub for lunch, you don't get the tax break. The coalition says, well, we don't think that's fair. We want a tax break for the small business guy. There's two warring sets of costings now. The coalition says it'll cost X amount, and the Parliamentary Budget Office costed their figure. Labor have taken it to Treasury. Treasury says it's somewhere between 5 to 10 times more than the other government department, the PBO. It became a feature of question time today. I'll be interested in your take, but I have to say I'd have to give it to Labor today. They were much stronger on this fight in the chamber, and you could feel they were getting the wind in their sails on this.
Well, yeah, they're looking for any opportunity to try and tear Peter Dutton down, as Scott Morrison tore Bill Shorten down, as Paul Keating tore John Hewson down. And for that, they need policies out there, opposition policies. So they'll be all over them. And they painted it as you're looking after the bosses, not the workers. We're the ones who've lifted wages. We're the ones looking after the workers. The opposition retort to that is we're talking about lunches where the boss takes out their workers for lunch, for example. And, you know, that can boost the hospitality industry as well. So it's an interesting one. I don't think it'll be front of mind for most voters, frankly. Nor do I think the public service cuts will be front of mind for most voters, even though Labor seems to think there's a lot to be gained from prosecuting that one. It'll have a little effect, but, you know, it's all cost of living, isn't it? And I'm intrigued to see if either side goes tax cuts in this campaign. I think I would, because you could do it in such a way it's a year or two away, so it's not deemed to be inflationary. I think that's going to be one of the keys to this election. If you look at elections over the years, I think the Rudd Howard one, there were dueling tax cut packages, one matched another. The stage 3 has rolled through the past couple of elections and been a feature. That's the one piece of the debate that's missing from this campaign at the moment. We've got debate around who can manage the budget better and who's on the side of workers and business, and of course the energy debate. We haven't got any sort of tax cuts debate, so I'll be intrigued to see if there's any tax cut promises coming.